Yes, welcome along to the Shelter SportCast from the BackChat Studios. Mark Reddings alongside Chris Coyne as we look towards the World Cup. Of course, the music you hear in the background is from the Southern River Band, local lads out of Thornley. We know how good they are in Scully and Dashing Down, very big fans of them. Of course, we produce these shows every Monday and Thursday, giving you reviews of everything in sport outside of the footy season. It's a bit more rounded, so to speak, and the round ball game will be the focus today. Socials at Shelter FootyCast, FootyCast at shelterbrewing.com.au, YouTube, BackChat, you know where to find us. Shelter, born and bred in Busselton, WA. Great drop, great company, and we love them as well. Coyne, you are dressed for success. Look at you in your glory gear, hey?
Yeah, couldn't afford anything else, mate, so I had to wear the sponsored gear today. So, it's washing week, mate. So
we have to say that, the World Cup and plenty of news on the A-League front and for the Perth Glory. But let's get down to the business of the World Cup final. We know that it's going to be France v Argentina, the two best countries left in it. Is that fair to say?
Well, definitely the two best left in it. And obviously when we spoke previously, we thought they'd be there or thereabouts. So I'm glad though. I mean, even though Morocco was a fairy tale, I think it was maybe one game too many, but it looks like it's going to be a cracking final. I think the two best left are definitely going head to head on Sunday night.
You got France trying to become the first team, I think, in 60 years to go back to back at World Cup level. And then you've got the romance of Leo Messi and the Argentinians.
Where do you sit on that?
I don't have any strong allegiances, but probably leaning towards Argentina just on that basis. But I don't know. As Australians, where should we lean?
Yeah, well, I don't know, because I'm the same. I just think that fairy tale ending for someone that's had such a great career. I thought England might do it over France. I wasn't sure. I was so Switzerland the other week in terms of picking one. But now that they've both got this far, I don't know. I think it's just the romance, the fairy tale. I think I want Argentina to win just purely for Messi.
We'll try and break that final down. Of course, 11 o'clock Perth time on Sunday night. But we're talking about sporting news this week. The A-League and football in this country absolutely bathing in the success of the Socceroos, but that lasted about 1.2 seconds, with the powers that be deciding to hand for 3 years the grand final, the A-League grand final, to Sydney. Now, there's been criticism from outside, from inside. Break it down, Coyne, from a football perspective, and what you think this means long term.
Yeah, listen, I suppose giving it some context, so for people that don't know, obviously the A-League was run by the Football Federation Australia, the FA, and then what they've done over the last 2 years is that they've taken a model similar to what they have with the EPL, where the EPL actually runs that league, but it's governed and all its regulations are actually written by the English FA. So we've followed a similar business model, I suppose, in Australia, so that the owners or the clubs have that autonomy on making decisions. So what's happened is 8 clubs have voted yes, 4 have said no, and it's a purely commercial reason. Listen, we're not stupid. Let's be honest. Everyone knows it's a commercial decision. Do I agree with it? I'd hate to not have the opportunity that we had in Perth 3-4 years ago, where Optus Stadium was full and the Perth public gets to see their team playing in a grand final. So for me, being a sort of football head, in terms of like a bit of a nuffy when it comes to footy, I'd like the opportunity of getting that. But then I'm also not stupid, because the AFL have been doing it for years.
And it's going to be like that until 2057. That's the reality for West Coast Eagles, Fremantle Dockers. You have to play at sometimes the home ground of a Melbourne club, even when you finish higher.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen non-Victorian teams in the final. So playing devil's advocate, I also see the commercial reasons of why they've done it. They're in their infancy. We've gone through 2 years of COVID. There hasn't been bums on seats. So if you're looking at holistically, for the longevity of the game and for them to grow the brand, I think it's actually a good commercial decision. Now, as a fan, I'd rather see that. So everyone's got their opinion, but for me as a fan, I'd rather see my home team, if they earn the right to play the final at home, they get that right. But I also understand, for the benefit of the game, that sometimes decisions have to be made for the whole of the game, not just for the 12 A-League clubs.
So does that mean, in a nutshell, you think, given Sydney has it for 3 years, that Melbourne might be the next cab off the rank? We're never going to get a grand final under those circumstances, surely.
No, well, that's the problem. And because they've got 3 teams, New South Wales has got 5, I understand why they're doing. They've also got bigger population bases. So I don't think we're going to see this as a long-term solution, because I think the pushback from the public's been far too great. Let's be honest, VFL was the home of the league that other teams came into. The AFL, or the A-League, is an Australian-wide competition, so it didn't have that roots base like the VFL did. So I think for a commercial aspect of 3 years, I can understand it, but I don't think long-term that it will have any legs at all.
Some of the big moments of the round on our Shelter Sportcast. Mark Reddings, Chris Coyne joining on this Thursday. Righto, let's get down to some business when it comes to, we talked about the World Cup, and locally, what about the Perth Glory? Now, Dan was at Macedonia Park. I was just slumming it at the MCG listening to Billy Joel do his best work. But you boys were both at Macedonia Park on the weekend. A victory for the boys, which was terrific, but also the crowd and the buzz. Surprised by the vibe?
No, not really. I think I said a few weeks ago, like that retro feeling. It had the old NSL type feeling about it. And it was, even walking into the stadium, it just had a really good vibe to it. And, obviously getting the win obviously helps, but from the kickoff, the supporters, the people that turned up, saw Dan there throwing beers at the shed end and that, having a bit of fun. So
just going to go on record that didn't happen. Thank you.
I'll send you the footage.
He did, though. We have found out that he did have a GA pass, but just talked his way into the premium.
Oh, that's what you can do, mate. When you're
is there such thing as a premium at Macedonia
there
Park?
There is. It's premium minus the E. But to be honest, mate, what's been transformed, or how they've transformed that ground to get it to where it is nothing short of remarkable. So great game of football. I've obviously watched it back 2 or 3 times now to get an overview on it. Great game of football, goals, goal-mouth action. It had all of it. And then, I think in terms of like pedestrian access, etc., I think that there was a good job done by all just to get the game on. It was good fun.
We're talking about fans, going back to the grand final, moving to Sydney for 3 years. I actually bumped into one of your staff members yesterday at Steve's. They're having just a couple of Christmas refreshments, which they are totally entitled to do. And he said to me that he's a bit disappointed. A couple of Glory supporters had rung him up and said, we're going to cancel our memberships in support of, or in a backlash against the grand final decision. But of course, that does the Glory no good. You want your fans to stick fat.
Yeah, that's the problem. So I read something yesterday as well where they're talking about walking out in the 20th minute mark and all the rest of it. So I don't think the grievance, and I think Tony Sage, to be fair, has come out and shown that he's disapproved of this. I don't want to put words in Tony's mouth. It's only what I've read. But the fans have got to remember that the clubs don't have that control to make those decisions, so that there is a body above them that makes those decisions, and they're always trying to act in the best interest of the game. So at the end of the day, the fans can do whatever they want. They pay their hard-earned money. They work hard during the week to ensure that they can go to games. And, if they want to stand on their heads for 90 minutes, like, they can do whatever they want within reason, obviously. But at the end of the day, we haven't had a game for 217 days before we played on Saturday night. And that, it felt weird just getting in the car and rocking up to a game instead of flying and driving and all the rest of it. So, I definitely support them in however they choose to take action, but not to the detriment of their football club.
Yeah, well spoken.
I think that, I'd support them with whatever they do, but I'd like them to be there as a 12th man as well.
Now, you've got MacArthur on Sunday. Then, of course, I think Wellington coming back the other end of the following week.
On the Friday,
But the big news is Adam Taggart coming back to Perth. And a statement he made about your club being basically where his heart lies.
Yeah, well, do you know what? He's similar to me, I think, Skates. He's a Perth boy, and it's all we knew. This is our club. And everyone's had a different journey, and Tags went off to Fulham, and he's been over in Asia, and he's plied his trade at a few other clubs, but this is his club. And I had a good chat with Tags the other day, and you're happy being home, mate? How's everything? You settled in? And usual chit chat, usual bullshit. And he just goes, Coyne, I'm buzzing. I'm absolutely buzzing to be back. And he said, I can't wait to get out there. So great coup for the club. Good work from Ruben and Andy Keogh and Tony and that to get it across the line. And Tags is like chomping at the bit. He just wants to get out there, and obviously got to wait till 11th of January, to get all the contract and the transfers across. But done and dusted, and it's great to have him back. He's a good character. He's a very, very strong personality as well, Tags. He's a good one to get back. Great
news for the Glory. A victory at home. They get Adam Taggart and 2022 in a decent spot. Hopefully some more momentum to come. This is the Shelter Sportscast. Dan, I've got him working. Just trying to get those stings more regular. Just have a real buzz about it. Look at you shaking your head.
In disgust as well, by the way.
I know, we're just trying to keep on his toes.
Absolutely
Well,
so.
the rest of the round, as we discussed, and going back to the semi-finals, and we're using your footy IQ here, Coyne, to work out the Argentinian-France matchup. Of course, Argentina far too good for Croatia, 3-0. They dominated, essentially. What sort of flaws do you see in their game? Obviously, they beat Australia 2-1, which many Australians are thinking, well, the two teams that knocked us over have made the final.
There you go. So we weren't too far off, were we? But we said they started slowly, Argentina. Obviously, they'll become the first team, I think, to ever win the World... Or was it the second team? I think Spain might have done the same. So they've grown into that World Cup, and the fact they didn't have a 5-week lead in it, they've just progressed beautifully, and they've come together as a unit. You can see the closeness, that Dutch game, when they're all kicking off on the sideline. I mean, I didn't like him kicking the ball into the opposition bench, but you can see that tightness that they've grown, and they've come together. What might catch up with them, the fact that they've played 6 games in such a short time with that aging squad, older group. Messi's got to back it up again. It just becomes...
It's a final though, Coyne. Come on.
Yeah, it is. But, you think of all the adrenaline and all the gas and all the juice they're going to use before
Extra
the
time
final.
as well. They've played some extra minutes.
That's what I mean. So it could be the one that catches up with them due to the fact that they have got that aging squad, and the French are at probably a better football age than the Argentinians.
Messi, we talked about him briefly, but what do you do in a football sense to try and limit his effect on a game?
Kick the piss out of him. If you can get close enough to. It's so hard, mate.
Is he quick? Is he light?
He's sharp. He's nimble. His centre of gravity's low. And what he's so good at, he's got this real knack and this real awareness of just finding space. So if you watch some footage of him, he always goes and stands next to the referee. So he's always just in and around where the referee is, and it doesn't catch people's eyes. He's very, very clever. And, that third goal the other night where he just dances around people, and he's just still got that ability that one-on-one ability where he can just really take someone to the cleaners. So I reckon he's grown into the tournament as well. I think he's got better and better as the tournament's gone.
6-time Argentina has reached the final. I think they've won 3 of those, just off the top of my head, but they've certainly been dominant in so many ways. The biggest semi-final history while keeping a clean sheet. So they've got a lot of numbers going in their way. If you look at this team compared to, say, other great Argentinian side, is it comparable, or are we just looking at maybe Messi, Alvarez was outstanding the other night? Are they not in the same class as some of those great Argentinian sides?
I don't know, because I get a bit nostalgic. You can tell you're getting old when you get nostalgic, right? And I look back at the 86 World Cup and remember that was my sort of first memory of it. So I look at that team and think, shit, they're a good team. But you go back to the 78 final when, they had a great team then as well. So I think on paper, they're as good, and they've got that maturity and that experience which allows them to sort of grow into games. Are they as good as that sort of 86-90 team when you're talking about your Canijas and Maradonas and whatever? I think Maradona carried a lot of that team as well. And I think actually Messi's now got help where Maradona didn't have too many helpers around him. So I think, this team's good. This is a good Argentinian team. And the thing is, with every Argentinian team, they're tough. They won't give in. They'll fight to the hilt to get a result.
Didn't they give it to the Dutch after they won?
Oh, yeah.
There was a bit of feeling. And now, you just...
What about when Van Dijk came flying over as well and absolutely sent the boy flying? I thought it was cold. I don't mind a bit of that stuff. It was good.
Yeah, well, some say, look, you've got the result and then you start to wind up the opposition. But look, end of the day, they went back after their semi-final win and they sang in the rooms, and a bit of talk. It might have been homophobic or racist. I'm not too sure. I've got no idea.
I don't speak Spanish, so I'm not sure. But
I speak Swahili occasionally after some shelters.
You're not wrong. Probably every Sunday morning after the World Cup. But even like the way that Messi, so you can see how much it means to him. And my son asked me the other day, like, Messi, should he be doing this? Should he be doing that? So he's gone for the Holland coach.
Yeah.
And I said, you can see how much it means to him that he's calling him out, saying, you open your mouth too much, shut up, let us get on with it. So I think he's probably been an instigator of some of that sort of banner and, what's going on, because it means a lot to him. This is his last chance. He knows this is his last chance saloon. And I think we've seen that in his performances as they've gone through the tournament.
And you talk about their opponents, France, 2-0 over Morocco, which when you say the soft side of the draw, semi-final wise, it turns out they're very miserly throughout the tournament, Morocco. But I guess the class factor comes into play here. And let's give credit to France, because I remember the injury toll heading into the tournament was quite pronounced. They've managed to really just glide through. They haven't really created too many waves. They've just been very professional in getting through to another final.
Yeah, they have. They were lucky to get through against England. I think if Harry Kane scores that penalty, I think it's a completely different story because for me, England were the better team. They were the better team, but France obviously showed some great resilience. But they have cruised through it. They've got some great athletes. And then when you're talking about the boys they're missing, we're not just talking about like squad players. We're talking world class. So the fact that they've got themselves shows the strength and depth that they've got through that unit. So going to be a great final. Two contrasting styles. The Argentinians will play flary in the front third, and the French will just play with pure pace and look to get Mbappe and those sort of front three on the ball. So it's going to be a cracking game.
If you had the choice, schoolboy footy, where you get the choice in the backyard or wherever it is, do you take Mbappe at the stage of his career, or do you still go to the old bloke at 35, Leo Messi? I mean, who do you take?
So we're picking teams.
If you're picking one player out of those two to take into a final.
Good question, mate. Good question. I am going to go with Messi. I think he can orchestrate a lot more. So reason I say this is Mbappe predominantly plays down that left side. So if people aren't feeding him, he's not getting any of the ball. Where Messi will go and feed himself, he'll go and get scraps, he'll go and just pick the ball off wherever he needs to get it to sort of dictate the tempo of the game. So I think if they can stop the source to Mbappe, he becomes very limited like they did against England the other night, where Messi's one of them that he'll just go and fetch and carry, and he can take the ball up the pitch as well. So I'd probably say Messi.
Okay. 11 o'clock Sunday night. Not sure you got your selection and a scoreline because your predictions, the crystal balling of Coyne has been absolutely elite.
Not bad. I've fallen over the last few weeks. It's been tough. Brazil losing, I would have lost a fortune on that if I'd had to go.
But you weren't a lone soldier there. But this is a really tough game to call. I'd imagine France slight favourites or not?
I think so, yeah. I haven't actually had a look at the odds
I'll have a look now.
The thing for me is I think if I was chucking money on it, I'd probably back France. But when the old heartstrings come out, I think in the heart of hearts, I want Argentina to win it, just because I think it's just set up beautiful. So Mbappe and Messi are on the same amount of goals. They've both got the opportunity of winning Player of the Tournament. So I think whichever team wins it, they get the Golden Boot, Player of the Tournament, plus a World Cup to go with it. So I just think, as a kid, you grow up, that's the stuff that dreams are made of. And I think it's one of them where I'd love to see Messi go down and go out, because I think he's been such an elite professional his whole career. And the ways, not just the way he's played, but the way he's conducted himself and all the other stuff that he does, in terms of his human element. I think he's been, not to say that Mbappe hasn't done that, he's still a kid. But at 35, I think all the humanitarian stuff and all the other stuff that Messi's done, I think speaks volumes.
Just back to that in a second, but as it turns out, Argentina at 280, the draw 295, France 275. So you couldn't really ask
Can't split a hair, can you?
It's 50-50. And just quickly, because Messi, as a human, like we've seen Ronaldo act like a bit of a goose, I've got to tell you, in the last couple of months, in terms of a team aspect, Messi is highly regarded on and off the pitch?
Yeah, he is, yeah. Apart from when he took that money, I think it was the Saudis or something, where he's got the sponsorship. But, hey... in terms of, all the stuff that he does externally of football, it's massive. And not saying that Ronaldo hasn't, I couldn't tell you that, but I just think it speaks volumes of his career that he's been in the game since he was 16. And I don't think there's been one bad word said about him or anyone that's had a crossword against him. So, no teammates, no ex-teammates, the work that he does external of football as well. Obviously, UNICEF were big sponsors of Barcelona. So I just think that he's been the ultimate professional, and someone that if you had a young kid that was looking to play the game, you'd say, well, follow him and don't look at that pork chop that's carried on like an absolute nugget for the last 4 weeks.
Once this final's over, will he play club football, or is that it?
I think he might do. I think that Saudi thing might have been the fact that it might be a precursor for his retirement over there. But I think it's one of them, like his appetite for football has been that big. I think he might carry on, but do you want to damage your legacy going into 37, 38 when you can sail off into the sunset? With
a World Cup potentially under your armpit. Third place, I can't wait for this. Why do they play for third?
Waste of time. Wouldn't you want to just go home? I mean, the only thing I would say, if you're a squad player that hasn't had much of a look in,
true,
it does give them an opportunity to go and, play at that, that level. But
put it this way, if Australia, heaven forbid, we had the chance to get to that point, we'd all be glued to our TVs on Saturday at 11 p.m. It's Croatia and Morocco.
I think you'd be heartbroken as a player, though, like losing the game at such a level. I'm sitting there going, Qatar, Dubai, Yeah, it's an hour flight.
Let's get out of here.
I'm out of here. Let's go, boys.
Who's winning this one? Well, Croatia start favourites, I'm guessing.
I think Croatia, but then again, it depends on what they do because the Moroccans have been pretty feisty and they've been at it. So it just depends whose appetite to win the game's actually there. I'll be honest with you because it's a dead rubber. I mean, who really gives two shits if you finish third or fourth?
No, but if you're Morocco, I mean...
I think, yeah, that's what I mean. I think the Moroccans might have more of an appetite for it. Where
Croatia made the final 4 years ago, being there, so they've gone from on the cusp to thinking, well, do you get, now, silly question, for World Cups, do you get medals for finishing third? What do you get if you win the World Cup?
Yeah, well, yeah, you get medals, but I'm not sure. I think it's more the, for me, it would be more the sense of achievement. You could sort of give me a medal and I'd chuck it in the drawer, but that sense of achievement, no one can ever take it off you. So the third and fourth thing, it's always been a damp squib for me. It's not something I'd ever get up and watch, but at the end of the day, the Moroccans have come a long way as well. So, I mean, it's a bit unfortunate for Croatia as well. That's probably the end of their tenure at that level. Agent squad, they haven't really got much coming through with the youth. So maybe they do want to go out with a bang and say, listen, this is where we're at as a group.
I read 1.2 billion. This will be, we're talking about the Olympics, this is going to be the most watched sporting event this year. And given the numbers keep going up, not just TV, but stream, the most watched sporting event ever, just by virtue of how many people around the world will be tuned in around the globe.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it? I mean, it's you can't put it into context because the Olympics is massive, don't get me wrong, because it involves so many countries, but the World Cup's a 4-year journey. So every country is vested, and then even if you're not there, every person in China or every football fanatic in China is going to be watching it. So it's a massive, massive crowd, and that's why the Budweiser are putting 120 million's worth of beer in their storage for it.
Where do those people end up drinking the beer? Because I saw they had some like a backup plan, but anyway, they weren't drinking shelter. Because I'll tell you what, if they're drinking the shelter, they would have been up and about over there in the Qatar.
Population of bloody bus will go through the roof once they get into that.
Did I get your scoreline here?
No, I'm going to go 2-1 Argentina.
2-1 Argentina. Messi score?
Yep.
Oh, gee, you've got the fairy tale written beautifully there,
Yep.
Chris Coyne. Now, some other sporting news we should touch on. Let's work on the Wildcats. Now, COVID, I'm not sure if it's still a factor at glory level, but certainly tomorrow night's game
with
between
the
Breakers, they've got some COVID over there. Unfortunately, and even Dan was telling me it's going to be hard to reschedule that. The Wildcats, by the way, coming off an amazing victory. Not sure if you saw it, but
I did, yeah.
Corey Webb's 3-pointer. They
Talking about fairy tales, 250th game, all the rest. It was superb.
Amazing. And they trailed by, 5 with about 9 seconds remaining?
Wasn't it 14 or something with 50-odd seconds or
you're
something
right.
crazy to go? Mate, it was unbelievable.
I'd walked out of the media room. I just thought it's done. And they get up and win that. But I guess the postscript to that is, they got out of jail there, but now they don't play tomorrow night, and they've got to try and reschedule the Breakers. Is there a COVID concern in the A-League still, or is that pretty much put to bed?
Yeah, there still is. I mean, a massive sort of thing came through the other day about the protocols, processes, and a lot of it's to do with player wellbeing. So there's none of this if you've got 3 or 4 missing, like the game's cancelled. There's more of an open policy now, and you've just got to incorporate maybe some youth into the game. So there is still that facet there. And speaking to people, I was over in Sydney last week, and they said there's another outbreak there, and all the rest of it. We've seen it in Perth. Like there's different variants in that, but as a general consensus, I think people are treating it more in sport like it is a flu. So just make sure that the athlete is looked after, and then that we can't transmit it or pass it on to others when we're travelling or in the venue. So the games will go ahead in the A-League, but I'll say it's concerning. But I think we've moved past that point. It's just about awareness and people doing the right thing. I think we've got to that point now as a society.
Cricket, of course, the first test against South Africa begins on Saturday morning up at the Gabba. They're saying a sellout there, which is...
I hope so. Will this be
huge.
A contest, though?
It's 1 versus 2.
Yeah.
It's first versus second. So, and tell you what, the South Africans, dare I say it, they'll give the Australians a bit of verbal, which is fantastic.
Wouldn't you just say?
Oh, mate, well, 4 years ago, of course, you think of Sandpaper Gate. They've got, as you know, South Africans, they've got a bit of fire in their belly.
Bit edge to them, yeah, absolutely.
They've got some fast bowlers, so their batting's a bit suspect. But
that's what I wasn't sure of. Yeah, so bowling-wise, though, I mean, there's some sharp boys in there. They can throw it down.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be
mid-140s up to the 150s. So especially on that Gabba pitch, the toss will be interesting.
Absolutely. We know that Pat Cummins will come back into the side. Michael Neeser misses out. So the Australians have got so much depth with their bowling that they can really mix and match their...
It's a tough one for Neeser. I thought he was really good in the last test against, I know, average opposition, but he would have probably played 40-odd tests by now if he wasn't coming up against Cummins, Stark and Hazelwood. So I think he'll be one of them that maybe looks back a bit undernourished at his career, because he's a great cricketer.
No, you're right.
Fantastic cricketer.
He'd be playing, you think, with the West Indies. He'd be playing every test match and then some.
And opening the baton as well. Oh, well, maybe not, maybe 3.
The good news is the West Indies are back next summer for a test series. Holy, seriously?
Hopefully they bring the A team this time instead of the B team. But like we said before, I love my cricket, and sat down first day watching them, thinking, oh yeah, they're up and about. When they're trundling out 112s and you've got Holder in that bowl, and I mean that's off spin. Like Nathan Lyon could roll his arm over and bowl that. Yeah. It's poor. It is poor. It's
not the series we wanted, but I think the South African series will offer a bit more spice. And the Big Bash, of course, the Scorchers, defending champions, they get their campaign underway Saturday afternoon against the Sixers. Now, talk about injuries. I mean, you guys through the glory season last year went through a lot of pain. They've lost, you think of it, Phil Salt through injury, Mitch Marsh, likewise, Laurie Evans done for the recreational drugs. Tymel Mills, the latest casualty. I think he's got not so much injury, but a family emergency he's got to deal with. So the Scorchers, I don't know, they've got some great depth, and you know what it's like. You don't have to have the best team on paper, but you have to gel well.
Yeah.
And Adam Voges does a good job, but this will be a tough task.
It'll be a tough task. I think we've got enough youth and that coming through. I think we're blessed in WA at the moment. I think we've got a real group of good cricketers coming through. Yeah. So I think it's going to be, I think sometimes someone's misfortune is someone else's opportunity. And I think some of these boys that have maybe been deprived of opportunity are going to grab it, and hopefully they can grab it with both hands and go ahead, because there's some really rich pickings in WA cricket at the moment.
Geez, you sound like a coach. No, but you're very well spoken there, Coyne. Aaron Hardy, by the way, he's a good young cricketer, scored 170 in a Shield final. Fantastic all-rounder, and we look forward to him going well. As we wrap things up on this pre-World Cup preview, can you just explain one thing in the world of football? France get through to the final. Cops in Paris are forced to intervene with riots. So they win and they riot. What happens if they lose?
Oh, good God. I've got no idea. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because they're not known as a big drinking culture either. So with the English, you'd go, oh, they're all just pissed and they're all just carrying on like bloody idiots. Where the French, and it's the same as the Belgium. Do you remember that a couple of weeks ago on the Belgium? I know that's because their team were crap. But yeah, it's a strange one, mate. I mean, if they don't win, yeah, again, there's going to be anarchy. But I know there's a lot of social turmoil and economic turmoil as well in France at the moment. So there might be a little bit of that sort of socio-economic sort of stuff where it's on the borderline, tension. Where it's tension and it's edgy and all the borders, and you've got all the migrants. And I think there's quite a lot going on Europe post-Brexit and post all the other stuff that's going on. So I think that must be might be the underlying thing. And then obviously once you put the forum of football there, people just jump on board because there's such big numbers, and all of a sudden it blows out of proportion.
And Argentinians, I don't know many of them, but gee, they look as passionate as they come. Yeah. Is that fair to say?
How good have they been at the World Cup, though? How good have their supporters been?
Not as good as the Japanese supporters who are cleaning up the venues after the matches.
They're unbelievable. We played in Japan. They were there an hour before the game with all their support crew. There must have been 70,000 there. And from an hour before kick-off, before we even warmed up, they're sitting there just dancing and singing and going around. And the fact that they actually clean the stadium afterwards, it's like, wow. It's unbelievable. Just speaks a lot for their culture, I think. Huge, and it's a massive night, Sunday night, 11 o'clock, and of course we'll have a full wrap of that on Monday at some stage, depending on who's bringing the Barocca.
What time we finish off. There might be a few. Well,
I've got to fly in from Sydney.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we play, obviously, MacArthur on the Sunday. So
You'll be up and about, don't worry, Coyne. You'll be able to give us a good wrap. You'll get home to watch the game. Of course, if you want to keep it up to date with anything we do at the Shelter SportCast, it's socials at Shelter FootyCast, FootyCast at shelterbrewing.com.au, YouTube BackChat. You know where to get us, Shelter FootyCast playlist. Links in bio. Dashing Dan is off to a family barbecue, which he can't wait for at Hyde Park. I'm off to look for a Christmas present for my wife, which is hopefully going to be a short, sharp kill. But
good luck with that,
that's not, you done your Christmas shopping yet?
No, my wife's trying to drag me out tonight as well, so I'm not looking forward to it.
Boys, husbands and wives, get out there, get the Christmas presents, and look after your loved ones. We'll catch you on Monday. Thanks for your company, Coyne. As always, well done.
Cheers, Skeets. All the best.